الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله ناصر السنة والإسلام بأهل السنة والصلاة والسلام على من أمر بالتمسك بالكتاب والسنة وهو أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق على آله كقدره ومقدار العظيم. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها فإن كل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. After giving thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending the best of salutations upon His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his household, his companions, and all those who followed his footsteps unto the day of judgment. Indeed, whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide, no one can misguide, and whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala misguide, no one can guide. We bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is his servant and his messenger. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once again for guiding us in this beautiful masjid of Kal, where we come always on Sundays to remind ourselves on what will benefit us in both this dunya and the akhirah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us. My brothers and sisters in Islam, if you remember last week we spoke briefly about time. And the concluding remarks that we did was that we spoke about how short time was. And if you remember, we mentioned that how short time is can be compared to the time between the azan and the salah, as was mentioned by a poet who said that azanul mar'i hina tiflu yati wa ta'khiru as-salati ila al-mamati dalilun anna mahayahu qasirun kama bayna al-azani ila as-salati. He said that whenever the azan that is given to the new baby born is given, and also whenever it is given, you realize that the salah is not given, but then it's delayed until when the baby dies. And he said the reason why we do that is because anna mahayahu qasirun, the life of this world is short, kama bayna al-azani ila salah, such as the time between what the azan and the salah. So my brothers and sisters in Islam, if that is the case, we said that what you can do is to be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You should try as much as you can to always be conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that mindfulness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is captured in a beautiful hadith that was narrated by the companion Abdullah ibn Abbas. This hadith was also brought into the 40 hadith by Imam al-Nawawi, hadith number 19, where Imam al-Nawawi said that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he was speaking to Abdullah ibn Abbas, who happened to be behind him. Abdullah ibn Abbas, when he was narrating the hadith, he said that Kuntu khalafa nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I was behind the messenger of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then he said to me, Inni u'allimuka kalimatin, oh my son, or oh young man, I'm going to teach you some words. Then he said, Ihfazullaha yahfazuka. Be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will protect you. So from this hadith, you see that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling this companion, and by the way, Abdullah ibn Abbas is one of the greatest companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Sahaba said he used to be called Tarjuman al-Quran. That means the translator of the Quran. And he said that the reason why they call him that was because لِكَسْرَةِ مَعْرِفَتِهِ بِمَعَانِ الْقُرْآنِ. He used to be well versed in the tafsir of the Quran. So he used to be called Tarjuman al-Quran. So in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ was advising Abdullah ibn Abbas. Then he told him that, Ihfazullah yahfazuka. Be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you. So the question now arises, how can we be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So the scholars, when they were interpreting, they were trying to explain this hadith, they mentioned that the way you can be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is what? Ta'atuhu fi ma'amara. Try as much as you can to always try and do what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks you to do. That is, observe or fulfill Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's obligations. And also, wajtinabi ma naha anhu wa zajara. And also try as much as you can to avoid what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited for you to avoid. And when you do that, inshallah, you will be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you are mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is going to protect you. There are two ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects us in this world. First of all, He is going to protect you physically from harm in this world and the year after. And also after that, He's going to protect your iman, that is your faith, because that is the most important of all things. Because when you die not on the path of Islam, subhanallah, you will not be able to go to paradise. So if you remember, we once said that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to always pray that Allahumma ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. He said, oh Allah, please make me steadfast, or make my heart steadfast on the what? On the religion of Islam. So when you are mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to protect you. So the second advice that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave to Abdullah ibn Abbas was that ihfazullaha tajiduhu tujahaka. Be mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you will find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with you always. So that is the second advice. When you are mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you always feel that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is closer to you, and you will not be shy to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anything that you want. And the third one that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told Abdullah ibn Abbas is that وَإِذَا سَأَلْتَ, if you have anything that you want to ask somebody, فَاسْأَلِ اللَّهِ, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you have any need that you want, that if you want anything, whether it's wealth, whether it's health, whether it's money, anything that you have, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to grant you whatever that you want. If you remember in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Udu'uni astajib lakum. Call upon me, and I, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, am going to answer whatever that you need. So because of this, some of the scholars said this beautiful poetry, which was said by one of the scholars. He said that La taksuru al-makhluq wa rabbuka aqrabu. Never ever try to ask the people around you while your Rabb, that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is closer to you. Then he said that وَمَنْ قَصَدَ الْمَخْلُوقِ لَا شَكَّ يَتْعَبُ. Because whoever focuses on people while Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there will be overwhelmed. Then he said that لَا تَسْأَلَنَّ بُنَيَّ آدَمَ حَاجَةً. Don't ask the son of Adam your need. وَاسْأَلِ اللَّهَ الَّذِي أَبْوَابُهُ لَا تُوجَبُ. But ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whose doors are always open and not closed. Allah will yakdabu, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tends to be unhappy when you what? Allah yakdabu interrupt su'alu, when you do not ask of him. Bani Adam, but you see the son of Adam, while you ask him, yakdabu, he is angry. That is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as you ask him, he's more happy for you. But when you see the son of Adam, as you go to him to ask him of something, then he becomes more angry with you. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us. So Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam also said that وَإِذَا اسْتَعِنْ فَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ. And if you want to seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because no one can give you what you want except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I remember yesterday when we met Dr. Sheikh Khadi, one of the things that he mentioned was that the way that we measure the closeness of people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is by how fast they return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the time of calamity. So make sure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that you are going to solely depend on. Because he mentioned in the Quran, as we always recite in Surah Al-Fatiha, we said that إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. It is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who we seek help from. So try as much as you can that if you need anything, or if you want to seek help, wasta'in billah, seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us. And the last thing that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually concluded the hadith was that reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that nothing will ever happen to you except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually has already written that is going to happen to you. Because he told the companion Abdullah ibn Abbas that وَعَلَمْ أَنَّ الْأُمَّةِ, if the entire nation was to gather to harm you, they will never harm you except with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written that is going to happen to you. And he said that if they were going to gather in order to benefit you, they will never ever benefit you except with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written that is surely going to happen to you. Because even in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that وَإِن يَمْسَسْكَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ فَلَا كَاشِفَ لَهُ إِلَّا هُ. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written that harm is going to come over you, or you are going to, something bad is going to happen to you, no one is going to be able to alleviate that upon you except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you read be khairin, and if you also wishes you goodness, no one can actually, turn you away from that favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we pray that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on us. We pray that we are able to actually work and, with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us, and what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam also taught us in the hadith. Inshallah, I would like to end here and pray that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept what we have said, and all the mistakes that we've done, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala correct it for us with the lips of the angels. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.